Many of the legends about Alexander derive from his own lifetime, probably encouraged by Alexander himself. His court historian Callisthenes portrayed the sea in Cilicia as drawing back from him in Proskinesis. Writing shortly after Alexander's death, Onesicratus invented a tryst between Alexander and Thalestris, queen of the mythical Amazons. He reportedly read this passage to his patron king Lysimachus, who had been one of Alexander's generals and who quipped, "I wonder where I was at the time." In the first centuries after Alexander's death, probably in Alexandria, a quantity of the legendary material coalesced into a text known as the Alexander Romance, later falsely ascribed to Callisthenes and therefore known as Pseudo-Callisthenes. This text underwent over 100 recensions, translations, and derivations throughout the Islamic and European worlds in pre-modern times, containing many dubious stories, and was translated into 25 languages, for example, Middle Persian, Syriac, and Arabic. In ancient and modern culture, Alexander the Great's accomplishments and legacy have been depicted in many cultures. Alexander has featured in both high and popular culture, beginning from his own era to the present day. The Alexander Romance, in particular, has had a significant impact on portrayals of Alexander in later cultures, from Persian to medieval European to modern Greek. Alexander features prominently in modern Greek folklore, more than any other ancient figure. The colloquial form of his name in modern Greek, O Megalexandros, is a household name, and he is the only ancient hero to appear in the Karagiozis shadow play. One well-known fable among Greek seamen involves a solitary mermaid who would grasp a ship's prow during a storm and ask the captain, "Is King Alexander alive?" The answer should be, "He is alive and well and rules the world," causing the mermaid to vanish and the sea to calm. Any other answer would cause the mermaid to turn into a raging Gorgon who would drag the ship to the bottom of the sea, all hands aboard. In pre-Islamic Middle Persian, Zoroastrian literature, Alexander is referred to by the epithet Gujastak, meaning accursed, and is accused of destroying temples and burning the sacred texts of Zoroastrianism. In Islamic Persia, under the influence of the Alexander Romance, in Persian Iskandar Nemahu Iskandarnama, a more positive portrayal of Alexander emerges. Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, includes Alexander in a line of legitimate Persian shahs, a mythical figure who explored the far reaches of the world in search of the fountain of youth. In the Shahnameh, Alexander's first journey is to Mecca to pray at the Kaaba. Alexander was depicted as performing a Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca, many times in subsequent Islamic art and literature. Later Persian writers associate him with philosophy, portraying him at a symposium with figures such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, in search of immortality. The figure of Dhu al-Qarnayn, Arabic, Dhu al-Qarnayn, lit. The Two-Horned One, is believed by the majority of modern researchers of the Quran as well as Islamic commentators to be a reference to Alexander. The figure is also believed by scholars to be based on later legends of Alexander. In this tradition, he was a heroic figure who built a wall to defend against the nations of Gog and Magog. He also traveled the known world in search of the water of life and immortality, eventually becoming a prophet. The Syriac version of the Alexander Romance portrays him as an ideal Christian world conqueror who prayed to the one true God. In Egypt, Alexander was portrayed as the son of Nectanebo II, the last pharaoh before the Persian conquest. His defeat of Darius was depicted as Egypt's salvation, proving Egypt was still ruled by an Egyptian. According to Josephus, Alexander was shown the Book of Daniel when he entered Jerusalem, which described a mighty Greek king who would conquer the Persian Empire. This is cited as a reason for sparing Jerusalem. In Hindi and Urdu, the name Sikandar, derived from the Persian name for Alexander, denotes a rising young talent, and the Delhi Sultanate ruler Alauddin Khalji stylized himself as Sikandar-i-Sani, the second Alexander the Great. In medieval India, Turkic and Afghan sovereigns from the Iranian-cultured region of Central Asia brought positive cultural connotations of Alexander to the Indian subcontinent, resulting in the efflorescence of Sikandar-nama, Alexander romances, written by Indo-Persian poets such as Amir Khusro, and the prominence of Alexander the Great as a popular subject in Mughal-era Persian miniatures. In medieval Europe, Alexander the Great was revered as a member of the Nine Worthies, a group of heroes whose lives were believed to encapsulate all the ideal qualities of chivalry. During the first Italian campaign of the French Revolutionary Wars, in a question from Bourrienne, asking whether he gave his preference to Alexander or Caesar, Napoleon said that he places Alexander the Great in the first rank, the main reason being his campaign on Asia. In the Greek anthology, there are poems referring to Alexander. Throughout time, art objects related to Alexander were being created. In addition to speech works, sculptures, and paintings, in modern times Alexander is still the subject of musical and cinematic works. The song Alexander the Great by the British heavy metal band Iron Maiden is indicative. Historiography. Apart from a few inscriptions and fragments, texts written by people who actually knew Alexander or who gathered information from men who served with Alexander were all lost. Contemporaries who wrote accounts of his life included Alexander's campaign historian Callisthenes, Alexander's generals, Ptolemy and Nearchus, Aristobulus, a junior officer on the campaigns, and Onesicritus, Alexander's chief helmsman. Their works are lost, but later works based on these original sources have survived. The earliest of these is Diodorus Siculus, 1st century BC, followed by Quintus Curtius Rufus, mid to late 1st century AD, Arrian, 1st to 2nd century AD, the biographer Plutarch, 1st to 2nd century AD, and finally Justin, whose work dated as late as the 4th century. Of these, Arrian is generally considered the most reliable, given that he used Ptolemy and Aristobulus as his sources, closely followed by Diodorus.